going to do a clockwork walk around the garden and the garden centre and pick out a few plants that are looking okay in mid-September. And a bit of noise in the background as people having a bit of grub and a cup of coffee and stuff like that, and that's nice to hear at any time of the year. And this is a thing about fuchsias. There's lots of fuchsias that are hardy, and this is very important, I have found. There's one thing about a fuchsia being able to get through the winter, but it's another thing for it, when it gets through the winter, to grow and thrive and not sort of hang on, do nothing really until the end of the season. And there's only a certain amount of fuchsias I found that do that. So we're going to look at one or two. And this one is peculiarly called Army Nurse. And it performs here under a bit of cover for the first time. You only just cover that. And it performs in my garden. And the skirt of it is double. And I'll compare it to Mrs Popple. That's Mrs Popple. And Mrs Popple, it does the very same. It starts flowering reasonably early and it's a great one. But the problem I find with Mrs Popple sometimes, because it has been produced so much over the years, you can get a bit of leaf disease into it. You can get the older leaves can get brown. This Army Nurse doesn't seem to give any problem. So that's one I would highly recommend, Fuchsia Army Nurse. Now we'll go over here and look at a lovely Salvia. This is a very good Salvia. It's called Royal Bumble, and it's been flowering from about June, and it went off a little bit, and Linda went very kindly and deadheaded it. It does produce a little bit of seed, and it's reflowering again mid-September. Absolutely fantastic. Salvia Royal Bumble, and like Salvia Hot Lips, which it's red and white, and eventually the older flowers go completely white, this always retains a good rich red colour. And just as a matter of interest, we have a Diascia here which flowered earlier on, and we cut it back and it's reflowering. I think it's called, I always knew it as Diascia cordata. It's one of the taller Diascias and very hardy. It survived -10, -12, the -12, -15 winter of 10 years ago, so it's a really good one and very hard to get. And we're going to go along, look at our border. It's not looking too bad this time of the year. We're actually going to look at a little plant at the very end. Well, a little flower, not a little plant. Oh, just as a matter of interest, another Salvia. It's Cerro Potosi or some other name, similar name. It's an Italian variety. It's a quite spready out one, but a lovely shade. What could that be? Pinky, reddy, magenta-y, I think. Just appeared. It's the Chilean flame flower, Tropaeolum speciosum, I think, and it's an interesting plant. It can be very hard to grow. A lot of people try it, it doesn't grow, and then when you do manage to grow it, can't get rid of it. I find it needs a good layer of organic matter, and it tends to grow. It has these long roots, white roots, and it tends to grow between the mineral soil and the organic matter. And it's a good layer of organic matter is built up over the years here. That's why it does so well. And it can come up anywhere. I was never planted here. There it is. And it's there. And it's over here. Little bits of it. It's lovely. And there it is again. Now it can be a bit of a weed, but what it has in its favour, even though it does run a bit much, is that the foliage is quite small. So unlike bindweed, it just sort of disappears. It doesn't have that untidiness that you would get with bindweed in the winter. It never gets. You see it in very old English gardens with yew hedges, and they plant it along the yew hedge, and it grows to the yew hedge, and you get the perfect combination of red and dark green, which are the opposite end of the spectrum and contrast so well. So anyway, that's Tropaeolum speciosum. Very hard to get going, but when it gets going, very hard to get rid of. actually, there's another salvia. That one is slightly darker, very slight. That's called radio red, but there's not much in it. And funny enough, when I take that flower, one of those flowers, and compare it to Royal Bumble, it's the same. But you just sort of psychologically think it's different, but it's not really much different. This is the dwarf pampas, and it's looking really well. A variety called Pumila, and on air-rich soil, it's up to this height. And that's super, absolutely super grass. It was moved 2 years ago, and it took a year to recover, and it was cut hard back, and it wasn't touched at all this year, and it won't be touched at all next year. But the year after that, it will start building up a lot of thatch, a lot of brown thatch. Because what the problem with herbaceous, soft herbaceous plants that are evergreen, unlike evergreen trees, they've no mechanism for getting rid of the old foliage. It just stays there, so it just builds up. So every few years, and I mean, you could go through it with a strong pair of gloves and pick it all out, but you'd be there forever. So every few years, I cut it to the ground and start it off again. So that's Pumila, and we're going to look at the other one I planted. We're going to ignore the New Zealand pothole. And this is the superb one called Sunningdale Silver, and I'm very disappointed because it's meant to throw a flower spike up to 10 foot high, way above the foliage, and it's only thrown the spike to here. Now there's a good reason and a bad reason. The bad reason is that they've given me the wrong plant, and the good reason is it's only starting out, and it'll take a year or two to settle before it starts throwing a flower spike up really high. And I think that's going to be what will happen. Now here's a secondary flower bud, and it's actually much higher already. So I'm going to persevere, and next year I should hope that it will hit 10 or 12 feet. And no flowers at all on this one for some reason, but next year, once again, loads of flowers. Now we're looking at a job to do. Here, we're going all the way around looking at stuff and just picking some nice stuff out. This rose did very poorly this year, and we've lots of roses here, very nice roses, and I'm thinking of making a change. We have no Potentillas, shrubby Potentillas planted at all in the gardens. They're sort of out of fashion, and it's time that I sort of gave them another go. They repeat flower. They're very easy once they're in an open sunny position that's facing east here, and you get sun for a good part of the day. Now, and there's a lot of different types. There's one called Limelight, and this is a more common one, Kobold. But I don't know this one or this one, and we'd probably take all the hosta out and get rid of all the old geranium, get the whole lot out, because it's in gardening sometimes it's easier to, rather than me picking away and doing little bits, to just take a whole area out and fluff it all up and replant very quickly. And the thing about these shrubby Potentillas, very important, and it's the question the gardener always asks, does it flower on the new wood? Because if it flowers in the new wood, it means that if it gets out of hand, you cut it hard back in the spring and it will still flower that year. So it means you never have to worry about it getting out of hand, and then if you cut it hard back, you lose a year's flower. Now here we have Ceanothus. I got a few to sell actually. Just saw it on a list. And they're called a Californian lilac for very good reason, and it's a pinky one, but it's Ceanothus pallidus, which I've never seen before, and it's called pink arrow, and I looked it up, and pallidus is actually a hybrid between two different species. But once again, that flowers on the new wood. And an alternative option is to plant Ceanothus. So I have two choices: late flowering Ceanothus, flowers from about July, August, September, or else this Potentilla. I don't know. I'm spoiled for choice. Now let's see, what are we going to look at now. Yes, something very nice. Something very nice. I planted these last year, these Actias. Oh, by the way, this is a Crocosmia. It's called Paul's Best Yellow, and it didn't flower well this year. And what needs to be done is very simple. Pull the whole lot up, get the pickaxe, take the whole lot up next spring, split it, put it back again, maybe a quarter of it back again, and it will flower perfectly well for maybe another 5 years until you have to do the same again. That's what you have to do with Crocosmias. They just get too crowded. It's not a big job really, and maybe we might have to. Oh, look at that! I didn't notice that lovely tall grass. That's Miscanthus Cosmopolitan. Actually, we'll look at Miscanthus before we finish. We'll finish off on the Miscanthus. That's Miscanthus Cosmopolitan, grown for its foliage. Very, very nice. And that's the reason I put this dark Actia against it, and for its foliage. But I forgot about its flower. I just totally forgot about the flower. And look at the flowers of it. People have commented on it already. Just amazing. Really, really good. And it's just turned out perfectly well. It's not quite, but there's a tiny touch of pink in the flower, and it gives it enough contrast, I think, against the grass. Now we'll finish off. There's something else I want to talk about. Oh, well, there's the goldenrod. That's a lovely, narrow, elegant goldenrod. Fireworks, I think. And even though it's the same colour as the Loddon Gold sunflower, there's such a difference in texture that there's enough of a difference for it to work. Very easy, late flowering perennial. Now we'll go and look at the Miscanthus, finish off in here. And look, just have a look at this while we're here. That was butchered back this year. Absolutely butchered back. And look at it. That's Cotinus Grace. And it's still grown far too strongly and then flopping and trying to get back up again. I don't think I have the heart. I have to move this out of the way. But I don't think I have the heart to cut it back. It's getting too late now, mid-September, to do anything with it. No advantage. So we're just going to leave it. Where is this Miscanthus? It's that one there. The silver feather, which is falling over a bit. And that's not the one I came to talk about, but it's nice enough. But I don't like that falling over stuff. I have one somewhere else. Here. And actually you can see the contrast. I think this one is silver feather and it's fallen over a little bit. But look at the Ferner Osten. Absolutely perfect. And look at the cheeky geranium making its way through. Well, we'll turn a blind eye to that. That's so nice. So there it is. There's the geranium there. I'm not sure. It's one of the Wallichianum geraniums. I think it's Sweet Heidy. Isn't that beautiful for mid-September? And we've only had about 3 millimeters of rain in the last month or so, and we had a first decent bit of rain today, and I can actually hear the plants growing when I'm not hearing the helicopters. I mean, that's me for mid-August in the garden, which is still, shall we say, it's still paying for itself. Oh, I forgot, said we were to finish here. And at the beginning, I've just been informed that I said we were doing a clockwork walk. It's actually a clockwise walk, because clockwork walk is that, like, I'm not going to do clockwork walk like they did on Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, I think was the clockwork walk. But we're looking at our final fuchsia, the Fuchsia Riccartonii. And the problem with it is, and this is the problem, we have us a problem here. That's our fuchsia, and that's rose, and they're very similar. And what I was thinking of doing, there's 4 fuchsias there, they're only planted a year. Just tell you how well that grows, that fuchsia. I'm going to lift them and put them somewhere else, or sell them off to a good home. And I'm going to replace with this one, and this is very similar, except it has pale flowers. See? It will grow very same. It's called Fuchsia magellanica variety molinae, and I only came across it by accident in a catalogue about 2 weeks ago, and I snaffled a few for myself, because once I have it for once, I have it forever. It's very hard to get these plants, they're not that popular. So 4 of them are going to go in there to replace that, and they'll go somewhere else, and that will, I think, will look better. A nice pleasant job for next spring.